Hello, welcome to today's section. Today we are going to talk about research problem and purpose. So the first question is, what is a research problem? Research problem is an area of concern where there is a gap in the knowledge base needed for nursing practice. So when you work in the clinic, you may ask your question about what is wrong or is of concern in this clinical situation, and what knowledge is needed to improve this situation. Or will a particular intervention work in this clinical situation? Or what is known about this intervention's effectiveness? Or would another intervention be more effective in producing the desired outcome? So when we write down the research problem, usually it should include several parts. The first one is significance of a problem. In this part, you need to describe the importance of the problem to patients and families and nursing healthcare system and society. And secondly, when you write down the problem, you need to identify the background for a research problem. So briefly identify what we know about the problem area, and then you state your problem. So you identify the specific gap in the knowledge needed for the practice or for your research. So let's look at an example. This is my group. We published one article in the Journal of Clinical Nursing. And the topic of this article is psychometric validation of the Chinese version of Johns Hopkins Full Risk Assessment 2 for older Chinese inpatients. And from the introduction, this part, we wrote down about the significance of a problem. So let me read through for you. So as the population ages, the number of falls and the related injury is also increasing. This is especially the case for the aging inpatient population. And since they usually experience physical and cognitive decline and exposure to unfamiliar and potential harmful environment, in the mainland of China, the incidence of falls among older people reported from both hospitals and community settings is about 80%. So from this paragraph, you will see how about the problem and what's the significance of the problem. So falls is really important issue for elders, and this part just describes the significance of the problem. And then we write down about the background of the research problems. So we talk about previous literature had illustrated that full risk assessment typically involves the use of multifactorial assessment tool or functional morbidity assessment. And the multifactorial assessment tools cover a wide range of full risk factors, while functional morbidity assessment usually focus on the physiological and functional domain of postural stability, such as balance, strength, joint, and reaction time. So in 2003, Paul and colleagues from Johns Hopkins, and they developed the full risk assessment tool. They using an evidence-based approach and expert opinions to develop this tool. And the characteristic of this tool, because they not only assess the common risk factor of falls, but also address the risk factor of the care equipment used by patients that is specific for hospital setting and not found in some of the older risk assessment tools. That means this part haven't been found in other assessment tools. So based on this assessment tool, full injury risk is also predicted, and subsequently standardized interventions are identified based on the patient's level of full risk. So from this part, you will see what's the research problem, or what's the background of the research problem. So from the clarification, from the description, the author said the Johns Hopkins Full Risk Assessment tool is a good one to use for elders who are living in the hospital. So later, we wrote down about the problem statement. So why we want to do this research in China? So because in China, a few tools have been developed to measure fall risk. However, they lack the solid psychometric development necessary to establish their validity and reliability, and they are not widely used for older inpatients. And in addition to use scientifically tested fall risk assessment tool among older adults, it's also critical to use validated tool for selecting high-risk inpatients. So compared to a broad application of general falls preventions, focused fall prevention strategies targeting high-risk patients are more likely to be effective in better patient outcome and reduce healthcare costs. So although Johns Hopkins fall risk assessment tool has been validated in Western countries, but it may not be suitable to use on Chinese population. So Nally and Bernstein have also stated that validation of measurement is an unending process, and that the validity of each use within a specific context must be documented empirically. So therefore, this study tried to test the validity and the reliability of Johns Hopkins fall risk assessment tool for its implication in Chinese population. So this example just gives us some ideas how to write down the research problem. And then we move to the research purpose. What is the research purpose? Research purpose is a clear, concise statement of the specific focus or aim of the study that is generated on the basis of the research problem. And the research purpose usually indicates the type of study, such as if the research is quantitative research or qualitative research or outcomes research or interventional research. And also, the research purpose usually indicates the variables, population, and the setting for the study. So I would like to give you some example about the purpose, how to write purpose for different types of research. The first one is for the quantitative research. So you may write down to identify and describe blah blah variables. And you may write down to examine relationships among variables. And you may to determine the effectiveness of intervention in managing clinical problems. Or for qualitative research, when you write down the purpose, you may write like this: to explore a phenomenon such as depression experienced by caregiver dementia, or to develop theories to describe and manage clinical situations, or you may to examine the health practice of certain cultures, or you may to describe health-related issues, events, and situations, or you may to determine the historic evolution of the profession. And for outcome research, you may write down the purpose as to identify, describe, and improve the outcomes or end results of patient care. Or you may write down for the interventional research, such as to investigate the effectiveness of nursing intervention in achieving the desired outcomes in nature setting. So those are examples for the purpose. Now for the section summary. And we talk about the research problem. Research problem is an area in which there is a gap in nursing's knowledge base. And the typical research problem includes background, significance of the problem, and problem statement. And then we talk about the research purpose. And research purpose is the stated reason for conduct a study. So the purpose usually hints at whether the study will be interventional or non-interventional. And sometimes at the study design, typically it mentions the population and the study's variables or factors of interest. So I also give some examples how to write down the purpose for different type of research. So that's for today, and thank you for your listening. See you next time.